Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you getting on? So, over the last few days, we've been playing quite a bit of the Outer Worlds on stream, having a really good time with it. However, despite the significant number of tutorials the game presents you with early on, there are a few bits and pieces it doesn't explain all that well. Whilst there are quite a few guides out there already covering quite a lot of different areas, I'm hoping to cover a few bits and pieces today that perhaps haven't been touched on in other guides. So, let's jump in and take a look at 5 things the game doesn't explain all that well. So, tip number 1, steal everything. Cash in the Outer Worlds is useful for more than just buying and selling at vendors. It's also used to tinker with your weapons and armour and effectively level them up and improve their stats. Now, you can sell the weapons and armour and other bits and pieces you pick up legitimately, but you will also need to repair your gear as it deteriorates in condition over time. And you do that using parts from broken down weapons and armour. And if you break them down, you can't sell them as well, and if you sell them, obviously, you can't break them down. So, by picking up everything that isn't nailed down, you give yourself a much larger pool of items to sell to vendors, who won't know that you've stolen it, and therefore giving yourself as much cash as possible, and as much weapon and armour parts in order to repair your gear with as well. Thieving in the Outer Worlds has basically no repercussions, provided you don't get caught. So in short, if you quick save before you do it, make sure you avoid line of sight, and you're behind people, or you close doors behind you, you can more or less help yourself to just about anything you like. Obviously, if you're playing a moral playthrough, you might not want to do this, but it does work. One thing to be aware of, however, is that whilst companions don't affect your sneaking ability, they will open doors behind you if you're not careful, so that can then open you up to line of sight and result in you being caught stealing. If you do get caught, it's not the end of the world. You can just pass a speech check or bribe your way out of it, but you will suffer a little hit to your reputation with the local faction, so it's something to bear in mind. However, it is a very effective way of making sure you pick up more cash, particularly early on in the game. Tip number 2, explore everywhere. So the Outer Worlds has some really pretty and really interesting environments to explore, and it's whilst you're heading off the beaten track that you might find extra side quests and extra tasks that you can complete, and other things that you might miss as well if you're just following the main story. Many of these tasks will reward you with extra money, extra XP, and extra reputation with the local faction, and you can also find a range of rare items, weapons, armour, things like that, hidden a little off the beaten track as well. Of course, you get extra XP from any battles you might run into as well, so it's a good way to get a better feel for the game, get some really cool items, and level up and get some cool rewards as well. Tip number 3, companions, and specifically companion gear. So as you pick up companions as you progress through the Outer Worlds, you'll find they have gear to start off with that is more about style rather than substance. You'll find over time you want to quite quickly upgrade the equipment they've got to increase their survivability and their effectiveness in combat, and also to increase their stats in other areas. Companions don't actually have specific weapon proficiencies, despite the preferences that are sometimes expressed by them. You can equip them with any weapons or armour. Good idea is to go with a melee weapon and a ranged weapon, but you can give them just about anything, so it's worthwhile giving them the best gear that you have available, provided you're not using it on your main character anyway. It's also worth noting that companions have specific skills of their own that boost your skills if they're in your party, and this boost also increases when they're wearing items of armour or helmets that will give their own individual bonuses to skills. So if you've got a companion with a skill in engineering and armour that also boosts engineering further, you get a bigger benefit from that. The game doesn't explain this, but it's very handy to know that companions don't actually use any of your ammo. The ammo supply you'll find in your inventory is yours and yours alone, so whatever you give to your companions, they're good for unlimited ammo. Whilst your weapons also degrade over time, companion gear and weapons do not degrade over time. However, it's worth noting that if you give them an item that is already broken, they will still suffer the penalties of that. Also, if you have the necessary skill, make sure you're taking advantage of your companion's special abilities as well. They frequently have useful side effects, and quite apart from that, they're really quite cool to watch as well, so always good fun there. So tip number 4 is the Holographic Shroud. When you finally get your ship off the ground, you'll pick up the Holographic Shroud in your captain's quarters, which disguises you as a member of whichever faction you are currently visiting. This gives you access to restricted areas that would otherwise result in you being immediately fired upon when you enter. However, the game doesn't explain how your Holographic Shrouds work particularly well. So, first and foremost, you must pick up an ID cartridge for the appropriate faction before you're able to put on the appropriate disguise. After that, The shroud engages automatically whenever you enter a restricted area. You'll see a big holographic restricted area sign, which will be a dead giveaway. Once you enter into a restricted area, you'll see a purple bar appearing at the bottom of your screen. This is a detection meter, which depletes as you move through the area. The faster you move, the faster the bar depletes. Once the bar is empty, your disguise basically fails, allowing the people in the area to see through it and recognize you for what you are. At that point, however, if you pass a successful speech check, either persuade, intimidate, or lie, you will use up one of your 3 strikes, which you can see at the end of the detection meter, and the energy bar, the detection bar, fills up once again, and you can carry on moving through the area. However, you only get 3 strikes, so make sure you get out of the area before you run out altogether. And tip number 5, side quests. Like most RPGs, the Outer Worlds give you side and companion quests as you explore through the game and talk to the various NPCs. It's a great way to bring the world to life, so well worth exploring. If that's something you do want to do, and you want to complete these, it's advisable to do so before you push on with the main story quest. Though some of these side quests will require you to advance the story in order to complete them, you can also lock yourself out of completing side quests if you advance the story too far, so it's best to advance those side quests as far as possible first before completing your main story objectives. So one little bonus tip, number 6, respecialization. On your ship, the Unreliable, you will find a respecialization terminal in the upper level of the cargo bay. And for 500 bits, which is the currency in the Outer Worlds, you can reset your skill points and your perk points. Each time you do this afterwards, of course, the price goes up, and it won't allow you to reset your base attributes. However, it is quite a handy little feature. Personally, I find that the Outer Worlds plays best if you have a somewhat specialized build for your character, rather than being too much of a generalist. And by the time you leave the Emerald Vale, which is the first area you'll get to explore, you should have a pretty good feel for the perks and skills that you want to focus on. So it's a good time to head back into your ship and possibly use the respec terminal to just streamline your build a little bit, maybe tidy up your point distribution a bit, and hopefully focus your build a little bit more. So, there we have it. 5 and a little bonus tip for the Outer Worlds that the game doesn't explain all that well. So I do hope you found that useful and informative. If you did, please do consider hitting the likes and subs. It's very, very much appreciated. We'll be playing more of the game coming up on live streams as well, which I'm very, very much looking forward to, so I hope you'll join me for that one. Make sure you've hit that little bell notification so you know each time I go live. Social media links down in the description as well if you want to keep up to date with what I'm doing on Instagram, Twitter or Facebook. And if you're really enjoying the content, please do consider becoming a channel member as well. The support is hugely, hugely helpful and very, very much appreciated, so thank you very much for that. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.